So, Michael Furino of Douglas Elliman, a pleasure having you in the building today.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate you coming by and checking out our beautiful corporate office. So, what do you think?
It's a nice little studio. I like the setup. Very comfortable. You got a hell of a setup with all the technology in here.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be great for business. I think it's good for the agents, right, or whoever you have come in here.
Sure.
You know, it's professional setup, and you know, I'm happy to be here. We'll have a good conversation. We have these conversations weekly, but now it's nice to kind of put it on film and other people can enjoy it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as Douglas Elliman and real estate, I know that's a big passion of yours. So out of all the different directions you could have gone, why real estate?
So I'll be honest with you, when I was younger, I was always good at math, and I was always, I was like an artist, and I really loved to build. Like
what happened in social studies?
No, social studies wasn't my thing. That's my cousin has that. He's a social studies teacher. He took that.
Got it.
For me, though, I loved art. I was good at math. I liked to build things. I thought I wanted to be an architect, and I was always fascinated by just buildings in New York City and construction, and I thought I was going to be an architect. And then I started off in school with that as being my major, and I just realized very quickly it was going to be way too boring for me. So then I decided to go into finance, which is obviously much more exciting.
Sure.
That was what my father did, so I got into finance. I was in banking a little while. I traded oil and gas. That was my first job. And I'll be honest with you, all the things that I've kind of done in my life, starting from first job to where I am now, kind of shaped being a good real estate agent without really knowing that.
Okay.
So, finance world, you got to be good with numbers. You got to really be able to take it, right? Like you don't do the right job, you're getting yelled at. High pressure all the time. You have to perform, right? Just like real estate.
So you started your business real background selling.
I was trading oil,
commodities type?
Yeah, and the 2008 oil market, which was like the craziest market, might be crazier than it is now, very similar market, and I just watched people make a lot of money and lose a lot of money really quick,
right.
And I just kind of got thrown in the mix.
Yeah.
I wasn't really trained, and I basically just clicked buttons all day, and it was pretty much gambling all day.
Wow.
And you just had to learn, sometimes you get in there 6 o'clock in the morning and you have your food in front of you ready to eat breakfast, you make a bad trade, you're done for the day. You're not eating, you're not hungry, you're just basically trying to dig yourself out of a hole. And I feel like it just built me up where I had, this mental stamina to just take over anything, right? Because if you make one bad trade and you're down $5,000, your goal is, how do I get that back? You're fighting back all day long, and mentally you're just getting pounded all day long, right? So that's.
And how long did you do that for?
Like 2.5 years.
Okay.
And it just beat me down. I just realized this isn't a career.
Sounds like it.
I want to have a family. I want to get married. Like, this is not something I can see myself doing on a day-to-day basis if I had a family. Young guy, not married, no kids, you can do it. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose, right? It's the beginning of your life. So you don't have anyone depending on you. So I think that was a good foundation for me.
So how'd you end up in real estate?
I started a few businesses, and then I was actually like 10 days, not 10 days, like maybe a month before my son was going to be born. Mm-hmm. And my wife said to me, "You're not happy doing what you're doing." And she said, "You always want to get into real estate. I know the baby's coming in like a month." She's like, "But I'm going to be home, and I'm going to be getting paid my salary." She said, "Why don't you get a real estate license and give this a go?" She said, "I'm going to be home with the baby. You can do what you have to do. I know it's going to be a ramp-up period, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is." She's like, "Go do your thing."
Even longer.
Yeah, you never know.
In many different young
But basically, she
professionals,
gave me the opportunity to do this and say, give it 6 months, see if you like it. You may never get this chance again, because once you have a family and kids and you have responsibilities, it's tough to just drop a job and kind of go for it. So it was really my last shot. So I'll be honest, if it wasn't for her, I probably would not have gotten into the business, just because she's the one who usually pushes me to make the decisions that I know I should make, but I don't want to make it on my own, right? So I kind of lean on her to kind of push me to that point where I say, you know what? I know it's the right decision. Let's do it.
Impressive shout out to the missus.
Listen, you have to have a strong woman behind you, because especially this business, it beats you up. And if you don't have someone to kind of come home to and kind of be a sounding board for you, you're never going to make it.
What's interesting is, with the real estate business being so up and down, it's just very intriguing that your first real business and career experience was with a commodity-based trading business, which is like as cliche of up and down, right, when it comes to trading.
Yeah.
And then now you got into real estate, which is another up and down, but maybe you have a little bit more control in real estate of your ups rather than your downs.
It's also softened, right? Like,
Sure.
so your ups and downs aren't because you made some mistake and you can't do anything about it, right? You're dealing with other people's ups and downs, and you just have to kind of manage it. I love people, I love helping people, and I feel like them going through the emotion I could handle. Me, I didn't want to be the one going, directly through the emotion. So me managing someone else's emotion, I was able to do, and I'm okay with. But dealing with my own emotion and putting myself in that situation, I didn't want to be in that situation. But, people always say, like, how do you deal with, all the ups and downs of real estate, right? And
Sure.
I dealt with it on a much worse level, and it was in my face, money up, money down. If you could go through that and beat that on a day-to-day basis, the ups and downs of real estate are not a big deal.
Right.
You get a deal, you lose a deal. You get a deal, you lose a deal. There's always another deal, and you're going to go get it,
Yeah.
right? It's not like it's out of reach. You lose one house, there's 50 others. You just maybe takes you some time, but that's kind of like where I think my strengths come in real estate, was just past experience, owning businesses, learning how to market, learning how to brand things, and kind of taking all those things that I learned and then applying them to real estate.
Sure.
And just running it as a business more so as just running around and, being a little chauffeur to people.
Right, sure. Nice. I like how you said it, just a little bit softer.
It is a little
of business
softer,
when
but
it comes to compared to what you were doing.
Yes.
So as far as 2020, 2021, 2022, some very very interesting things occurred throughout those years to where 2020, 2021. For you and I, our businesses were thriving,
Yep.
and then you had a big paradigm shift in 2022, which we all knew was
coming
eventually
at
going to
some
come.
point.
Some people were more ready than others, I guess you could say. As far as how would you summarize 2022? Because there were so many agents getting in the business within the past 2 years, 3 years.
Thought it was
We know you've
easy.
been doing it for an extended period of time. But yeah, how would you summarize 2022?
For me, it was actually great. I think, the way I run my business, I think it kind of set me up for success in a little bit tougher of a market. And just, and it was funny, 20 and 21, everyone, I almost heard people complaining how busy they were. And I'm looking at them, shaking my head like, this story comes to an end at some point, right? Like, it doesn't just come crashing down, but
Right.
at some point, it's not going to be this way, right? So, one, why are you complaining that you're this busy? And it's almost like, you can't handle it, right? It's like, you need to do as much today as you can because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We knew it was going to slow down at some point. I positioned myself where I worked as hard as I could. I think I maximized as much as I could, and I did as much business as I possibly could do. I don't know if I could have did much more, but I really put the effort in, and I said to myself, at some point, this is going to come to an end. It's going to slow down. I'll still do well,
Sure.
but who knows? Maybe I'll do better. Maybe I'll do the same, but it's not going to be like this. This has to change. Market's got to settle down. So I basically just said, I'm going to set myself up as if it is, a time that is a little bit settled down. And what would I be doing in a market that was a little bit slower, right? Back to basics and keep doing all the activities that I had been doing, right? Still sending out my mailings. And I really said to myself, I need to build a brand, right? Because no matter if the market's good or the market's bad, if you have a strong brand, people are going to come to you and they're going to remember you. And when times get tough, they're going to come to the person that was consistent throughout, the good times and the bad times. So I think I set myself up. I was consistent throughout, and I stayed humble, and I didn't just go out and start spending all my money, buying
Right.
stupid cars and houses and boats and all this other stuff, and I reinvested in my business. So as I was making the money, I put some aside. Obviously, I got to pay my bills. I put some aside to invest and save, and then a lot of that money gets pumped back into the business. So I started investing heavily in social media. I hired a social media manager, I have a videographer, I have someone who manages SEO and website, and I said, I'm going to build my brand.
You got it all covered.
Everything is covered, but at the same time, it's a lot of work, right? So
And money?
money and time and work, right? In addition to the time I have to spend with clients and family, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So I just played it as if, we did slow down, and this is what's going to take me through the tough times, right? If my name is out there and people know who I am, the deals are going to come to me, because the people who are not doing that, when it gets slow, they were just riding the wave, they were riding the momentum, whereas I was treating it as a business and kind of preparing for the future and kind of stockpiling.
Sure.
You never know, when you're going to need that extra, bag of rice, right? So kind of keep that on the sideline, and when I need to use it, I need to use it. So for 22, for me, my business was up 10%. I know a lot of people who were down significantly. I know some people who, did really well, some stayed the same, but I'm just happy that my business still grew and I still advanced myself to the point where this year I feel like, even though the market's kind of getting a little bit tougher, I'm still getting the phone calls. I still have a stockpile of leads coming in, and it's coming from referral. It's coming from people I work with. It's coming from my vendors. And that, to me, kind of summarizes and confirms everything that, agents that have been in the business for a long time, they talk about 2008 and how when things got tough, they still did well because they built up their name, they built up their brand, and they kept working through. And they said during those times, all those agents that joined just to kind of ride the wave and didn't invest in their business, they go away, they go get jobs, and now the pool of realtors kind of shrinks. The business has to go to somebody, cream rises to the top, and hopefully you're one of those people that benefits from, all the other people coming out of the business. So if you're positioning yourself in the past, right, while you're kind of doing your thing for the future, hopefully that's what's going to help me get through this year. So far, that's really been what it is. The majority of my business is coming from professionals, and that says to me that they trust me, they understand what I'm doing, and if they're going to pass along a client, they're going to pass it along to someone that they know they can trust, and that's going to be there for the long run. They don't want to pass it along to someone who may or may not be in the business 6 months from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent point. Great to hear that for the hard work and the grinding.
It works.
For 2020, 2021, because although a lot of agents, to where what I've seen, a lot of agents who were just so busy, you had the ability to kind of like pick and choose and almost at times cherry pick.
Yep.
So to see the real hardcore agents who are on the next level of things, like yourself, who between all that work and the grinding of 2020 and 2021 actually propelled you for 2022 to where the business just continued to grow. And even though your business could be hurting in some areas, you still now opened up so many doors of opportunity, which is definitely good to hear. That's the only way that your business increases, when 80% of the market's business is decreasing. So impressive stuff.
Yes,
So now with interest rates right now, because
topic.
always interesting. Yeah, hot topic. I mean, it's really a hot topic no matter what's happening in the market.
Agreed. If it's low, it's low. If it's high, it's high.
Even hotter when you come from a historic low of interest rates into now we spiked into the sevens at one point with between the third to the fourth quarter of 2022. And then now we started the year somewhere around like 6.5, low sixes right now. We had some real important economic data, which actually came back favorable today for interest rates. So you'll start to see the fives start to pop up a little bit more often. Where do you see interest rates just leveling out right now? If they were to stay around a 6%, we'd say, for an extended period of time, how do you think that would affect the market?
So I see it now. I mean, the buyers are there, right? Like, they're still out there. There's really nothing to show them, right? Like, the listings they're not coming on the market. I think people are scared. They don't know what's going to go on. And I think they're trying to figure out, what do I do? Do I sell and move? Do I sell and downsize? Do I stay, right? I could tell you this year I have a list of probably 15 potential listings where I've had good conversations with people, whether it was a few months ago or within the last couple of weeks, and they want to sell the house. And for whatever reason, they're just kind of taking their time. Some people, they're a little bit older, they have to downsize. They've been in the house 40 years, and for them to let go of that house, it's just an emotional drain, right? So I have to help those people get from point A to point B where, they're ready to put the house on the market,
right,
and they need time. They need to plan.
Right. And you don't want to rush at the same time, because
it's a big decision.
It could come across as desperate, which you're not, right? But I could see a lot of
everyone's
agents
at
could be a little
this-
pushy.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's if you build a business and you have a strong pipeline of constant deals coming in and out every single month, you don't have to be pushy, right? Because I don't necessarily need that deal to pay my bills tomorrow. So if you build it as a business and you constantly have cash flow coming in and you're able to manage that, then you don't come off as pushy. I could see that if, you're kind of on your last licks, and I hear it, like people have no deals in contract, they have no buyers, they have no sellers, they have no listings, and it's like that's when the desperation starts to show, and you can understand why, right? Like,
Of course.
you're making money, and now all of a sudden it's like, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to go get a job, and then you go get a job, and it takes away from the work that you've been putting in. So you could see why people start getting pushy, but I realize that it's not about me, it's about the people, and it's about what they want. And if you treat them that way, and a way that you're not pushing them to do something they don't want to do, they come to you when they're ready, right? And most people are pushing them. So I think with the rates being where they are, I think we're going to be fine. I have a ton of buyers, and every week there's more and more kind of coming to surface.
Sure.
Some of them are just starting, right? So there's the people who, missed out last year, and they're kind of still around. They're prime, they're ready to go, and they're ready to pounce as soon as something comes on the market. So when you see good house come on the market, priced well, and getting multiples, it is still happening,
Sure.
right? That's all those people that have missed out, and they finally have the opportunity. They missed out, they lost the rate, now the rate is a little bit higher, and they're saying, you know what, at some point I gotta just take the dive, and worst case, rates come down, I refi. Rates go up, I look like a hero, I'm at 5, I'm at 6, now they're at 8, right? Like, I made the right decision. So I think you have these new people that are coming in the market. They don't really know the market yet, and the only way to really understand market and pricing is to kind of be in it and to see houses and to see, okay, I really like this house, and I don't know if it's priced correctly, I don't know if it's the right one, so you know what, we're gonna let it go, let's see where it sells, right? And then they start to get a gauge. So that's how I work with people, right? So I have a new buyer come to me and I say, listen, we have to just go see houses. So whether you like the house, you don't like the house, if it's in the area and the price range that you want, let's just go see it, take some notes on it. Once it goes to contract, we find out what it's sold for. Now you have perspective on what that house in that condition in this market should sell
That's a
for.
great tactic, Mike.
Right? And
yeah,
then
great.
that makes them be able to make a decision, because the worst thing is good house comes up, they make a bid, and they don't realize they have to go a little bit higher because they just don't have enough time in the market. Right? So I want to prime people so that if they really want that house, they've had enough experience and enough data to kind of go through from the other houses to know this is a good price for this house, it's going to go, I have to be aggressive, right? And that's kind of that process. But if they're just starting to look in the beginning of January, they're not going to be ready for a while. Some people know what they want, they can make a quick decision. Most people are not, right? Like, this is a big decision, first house, most of the money that they have saved, it's going towards this investment. They're scared, they hear the news and the rates and the market's gonna plunge, and I don't wanna buy a house for 6 and then 3 months from now it's worth 5. It's like you have to educate, right? And it doesn't matter if it goes to 0. You're locked into your price on your house. You're not moving. You don't have to move unless you have to sell the house, right? So if you can afford this house and then the price goes down and jump out, right? It doesn't matter. That's the great thing about real estate. Like, you could ride out that wave, and you wait there 5 years, it could have went down 25% in the first month you bought it. But if you ride it out 5 years, it could be up 25, 30, 40%, right? So that's kind of the process I think a lot of buyers have to go through now. And there's just a lot of sellers on the sideline. A lot of the sellers I have now, they're just kind of 50-50. I'm getting a lot of people that are moving out of state, right? So the people that are moving out of state, they have to find out where they're gonna live first. Most people at that point in their life, they have the ability to at least put a down payment or buy something before they sell their house, right? So I'll hook them up with someone out of state. They go into contract on that house. Now we can put the house on the market. A lot of them say, I want to move to Florida, I want to move to South Carolina. They don't really know where they want to live. They just know what area they want to live in or what state they want to live in. They have to now go down there. They have to feel out those neighborhoods also. So it's a process for everybody. I'm hoping that people start to put their houses on if they know they're going to move, and we'll figure out some strategy to make them comfortable with figuring out where they're going to go, or getting them a lease back, or giving them time to where they can stay in the house, right, for 3 months, 6 months, or however long until they find where they want to go. Because I have the feeling that, market's going to go into the spring. All these people are going to now put the houses on, the buyers are going to be there, and that's when we're going to maybe see some prices kind of come down.
Okay.
Because I think we can see a rush of supply if people don't make up their minds and kind of list. The last couple years, we haven't had like a true spring where people list in like April and May, or like March through May. It's been, we've had a bunch of people putting the houses on in January and February, and those have been the people who have been getting great prices for the houses. I'm trying to explain that to some people, but in the end of the day, the motivation for them may not align with getting the highest price for the house. They may say, I'll take a little less if I have to buy myself time and be comfortable. So, with the rates being where they are, I'm still seeing buyers in the market, and they're basically just going to adjust what they can afford, right? So if they could have afforded $4,000 a month at the 5% rate and a $600,000 house, maybe now they have to buy a $550,000 house, at a higher rate, right? So they're just going to adjust what they're looking for. That may, if the supply jumps big time, then that may force the prices to kind of come down.
Of course,
right?
of course.
Because there'll just be more on the market. If we stay tight supply, I don't really see the prices falling off a cliff, because there's just nothing available, and there's tons of like very, very qualified buyers. And if someone wants to buy, they're gonna buy, right? Like they're not gonna wait and try and save $25,000.
Doesn't matter where interest rates go at that point.
It really
serious
doesn't
buyers
matter.
are serious buyers.
And they're there because I have them, and every day I'm getting more of them. So I usually gauge market off my own business. So if I have a lot of buyers and I have a lot of sellers, then I know I'm one of thousands of agents. There's a ton of other agents out there that have a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers. It's just, when do they make the decision to make the jump? And my office, we do very well. We do a lot of transactions. We do a lot of volume. And my office, I'm not really seeing this market that's so dismal that a lot of other people are talking about. I think the people that are talking about bad market conditions are the ones that didn't put the work in the last couple of years, and they're the ones that are kind of
or it came
dead.
too easy.
It came a little too easy because it was kind of just, I want to sell my house. I'm going to hire my niece who just got her license 4 weeks ago because, I wanted to, do well and make some money, right? But I don't think that's the case now. I think the sellers are starting to see that it's not so easy to just put a house on the market, pick a number out of a hat, and have 70 people fight over it. It's just not the condition that we're in anymore, which is more of a normal market, right? A house shouldn't come on the market and have 100 people outside. At this point, if there's 100 people outside a house, you price the house way too low. So whether it was a strategy, which I have something coming on now, we sat down with the sellers and we said, listen, this is where you could be. But if you want to get more buyers in the house, then price it at market or a little bit below. You'll get the traffic, and you may not get 15% over the asking price. We probably should get multiple bids, and at least you have the opportunity to choose who you want to sell the house to. House isn't in great shape, and there's maybe some issues with the house. We might be able to find the right buyer for the house, maybe at a little less of a price than a retail buyer would pay, but that retail buyer would bring up the issues. They'd do an inspection, they'd find, this is broken, this isn't done correctly, and they might then renegotiate or back out of the deal. Whereas if we price it correctly and we get a bunch of cash offers or a bunch of people that are looking at this as, I'm going to gut renovate this house anyway, at this price I can do it, and they have good terms, sometimes the sellers just want like an easy transition. Family house, been in the family for like 50 years. If they get 600 compared to 575, it's not going to change their life. It's not life-changing money. Sometimes people just want to make things easy. And when they come to us and ask us, how do we make things easy? We say, price the house correctly. We give them the right advice. And when they put it on at the right price, you get the volume, you get the bids, and you get to pick who you want to buy the house to make that easy for you.
Yeah, I think I just want to get back to an excellent point I think you made with a lot of these buyers who were in the game but on the sidelines and like wishy-washy, and they would wait and go house hunting every weekend and then wait and wait.
Daunting.
And then
I don't know how
they
they do
waited
it.
too long to where they got the wake-up call, right?
Yep.
The bell rung to where now when they see something, it's very important that they strike while the iron's hot. Inventory, of course, is low. The average consumer buys the house not as a flip or a temporary living situation. Buyer buys a house to live in, raise a family, right? That shelter. So it's just interesting how now if interest rates even stay around a 6%, a 5.5%, and like you're hinting towards, we could see a nice boom to the spring like we have year after year after year prior to COVID, then with those buyers coming back in the game now who are serious, who are not into wasting any more time, and now a surplus of new buyers could definitely have a nice little spark, I guess, overall to the industry.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's what's been happening, right? There just has not been a huge supply of houses. I don't see there being this huge influx where we're just going to completely flip the switch, right? Because everyone's in the same dilemma and they have to figure out where they want to be. And I don't see there being this huge rush of houses that just come on the market. But the buyers are there. They're like sharks. They're circling, and some of them are, deep down in the sea, just like going to come out of nowhere. And that's what, when I have new people, I try to explain to them, they see houses that have been on the market for 60 days and they think, all right, now we can automatically get 10% off the house. And I'm trying to explain to them, it's not the way it is, right? Like maybe they're a little high, maybe they'll have to negotiate a little bit, but you're still going to have to pay because they're still in the driver's seat. They still have supply on their side. If it starts to tick up, then it's a different story. But as we're seeing things now, there's really nothing out there. And, even with me, like I have a few buyers, maybe I show them one house a month, right? Or I have buyers I'm working with 2 months, we haven't even seen a house yet, just because nothing's kind of come on the market that's kind of sparked their interest. And, as things come on, we'll go look. But, it's until things get popped on the market, I think you're going to see prices are going to really stay at a high level. And sometimes, people have these houses, they need a lot of work, and they're still getting paid very, very fair numbers for these homes simply because there's just nothing else available. And if someone wants to buy, they're going to have to make sacrifices, and they're going to have to just bite the bullet.
Right. So one of the things we spoke about offline was on how I guess this is a big reason why also too that your business has been thriving in 2022, and then now as we roll into 2023, I don't expect anything less out of you. I'm sure you don't either. How buyers during those just high demand days when you could cherry pick, like you had some agents who they were dealing with enough buyers and they didn't even want to deal with them anymore. And now what's so interesting is how it just went to the other side of the coin of now a serious buyer is precious.
Yep.
And like you said earlier, you have some people who may come across a little desperate because the pipeline's really low. They maybe only have one listing. They maybe only have one buyer. So now that next serious buyer that comes in is real precious at that point. Are you handling buyers differently, or do you just kind of still see yourself doing the same concepts and strategies? Like I like the whole notes thing. Like, hey, even if you're not really fully 100% there yet, let's just go check it out and take some notes.
You gotta prime the engine, right? And like I get people that they reach out to me. I'm not going to buy until the spring. It's like perfect. Use this time to do your research, put them on a search, and have them just save properties, see where they close, and just kind of get them primed for that when they come to the market. Like they're ready to go, right? Because you don't want to miss the opportunity. But yeah, I mean, I just think staying ahead of the game and seeing that, last couple years, you really wanted to be on the listing side of things because you put a listing on, you sell it. You put a listing on, you sell it. But at the same time, I think a lot of people neglected the buyers because they didn't have the time or they didn't want to make the time and they saw it as a waste of time, right? But buyers are your future business, especially first-time home buyers. They buy now, they sell at some point, and then they have to buy again, right? So every buyer now, it becomes 3 deals in the future. You're working with them side by side, you're educating them, you're giving them good advice, and I think their parents appreciate that, their uncles and their grandparents see that, they appreciate that. They talk about you in a good light. Those first-time buyers, honestly, are like great referral sources for me for other listings because I work with one set of buyers, they refer me to their brother, I help the brother, and now all of a sudden the father and the mother are like, you helped out my kids, like now we want to sell a house. Both our kids moved in this section of Long Island. We're thinking about selling our house in Queens and relocating to where they want to be. And you're getting that deal, right? So neglecting buyers to me, I think it's not smart. And in the end of the day, I think you have to anticipate that eventually market conditions get to be where they are today and you want to have buyers, right? Because there is some negotiating power. You can get credits. They don't have to bid crazy over ask prices and drop inspections and appraisals and all that. It's more comfortable, and now you can use that to set your business up for the future. Whereas if you kind of turned all those people away, I can see why people this year and leading into the end of last year kind of slowed down, because they neglected the buyers, and now the buyers are in a little bit better position than they were. But now you have to like balance things out. I think you really have to understand your market. You have to constantly be learning and listening and having conversations. I mean, I speak with you and you tell me how you're doing and what your buyers are thinking, right? Sometimes you're the first person they speak to, and then they speak to me second. Sometimes I'm the first person, and then they come over to you. So we have to. I've been doing a lot of networking with professionals just to kind of get their opinions on what's going on. I have home inspectors I work with where they tell me things have been picking up in the last couple of weeks. That's when I know, okay, we're going to see the buyer activity start to pick up, because maybe I was a little bit slower at the time, and he's just a little bit more spread out, right? So he's working with only buyers, right? They're doing inspections. They're really only doing inspections for buyers. So if he starts to pick up, he might be the leading indicator that, market's going to start to pick up. Buyers activity is going to start. So you have to kind of have your ear to the ground, and that's the extra work that I think I put in that maybe other people don't put in. It's a lot of work. I mean, we meet on a Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock, which isn't that early. But I mean, I've been in groups. You meet at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you got to get up at 6, and you got to be out of your house by 6:15. And it's brutal. And then you're at night, you're having dinners, you're going out to networking events. But
you're not getting home until 8, 9 o'clock in the
evening.
evening.
Yeah, I mean, over December break, I probably was out Monday through Thursday every single night, right? And it's not easy on you either, because now you're out till 10, 11 o'clock. You got to be up early, you got to work all day, and you're working 7 days a week, right? But that's the effort I think that a lot of people don't want to go through. But if you have your ears to the ground and you're constantly talking to everyone, I think that only helps your clients, it helps you, and it kind of gives you an idea like, all right, I need to start investing my time and my effort more in this, because in a couple of months, this is where the market's going to be. So I think putting in all that extra work, I think that's what leads to the success and the growth. And
now with the networking, like you said, being out that Monday through Thursday, especially holiday times, it's great networking opportunities, right, for your holiday dinners and stuff like that. I hope Mrs. Furino still supported you with the initial.
I warned her.
Okay, all right.
She was warned. And, listen, you have to have strong support from whoever, whether it's your wife or your husband or, your family and your friends, because they do often get pushed to the side, right? But you do have to figure out ways of, compensating for that, right? So if you're going to be out all week, you got to schedule time aside for them, and you got to, have that balance, which it's not easy to do, but you kind of just have to figure it out.
Yeah. It was actually it's a perfect segue for the next question for you, where between working over and over and over, and we'll get into your social media platform, which I'm definitely a big fan of, as far as just working around the clock. How do you find the balance between work and family, in particular your industry, to where bread and butter is weekends? That's when people are having open houses. That's when sellers want to meet when they're not working. Kids, sports, school. So those Saturdays and Sundays are precious days for your business, but also could be precious days for spending time with the family. So how do you balance that?
So I think when I first started doing this, it was just kind of like a grind, but I also did not have like 2 older children. Right now my kids are 5 and 2.5, so time spent is a little bit more important when they're babies. It sucks to miss some of those things, but at the same time, they're really not going to remember that, right? So you could sacrifice that in the beginning to then say, long term, I'm going to put the time in. So it kind of sounds bad to say it this way, but I kind of treat my family, my friends, and everything else in my life like a really important listing appointment, right? So if you call me up and say, Mike, I want to sell my house, and meet me Thursday at 10 o'clock. On my calendar, Thursday 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, you're sectioned off. I am not scheduling something else in that slot. That is very important to me. So I kind of started thinking about it, and I said to myself, I was constantly setting things up. My wife and I were going to go do something, and then someone would call, and it was, Jack, I gotta go do this. Like, we gotta reschedule, right? So it got to the point where I said, why am I treating my friends, my family, my wife, my kids less important than I'm treating my business, right? So now if I'm going to do something with my family, my wife, we share calendar, and she knows try not to ask me the week of. Week of is tough. My schedule's booked 2 weeks out. So if she wants to go to a museum with the kids on a Friday this month, put it on my calendar. I accept it. I treat that as if it was a listing appointment, right? So if someone says, if we're going to go to a museum on a Friday morning at 9 o'clock, and someone says to me, oh, I want you to come sell my house. Can you come meet me at 9 o'clock on Friday? I say, no, I have other appointments in the morning, right? I'll meet you at 1 o'clock, right? So I treat that as if it was just an appointment in my calendar. It's just as important as everything else. And now I found that balance, right? I spend a ton of time with the kids. And for me, it's more of the quality of time I spend with them rather than the amount of time. Everyone could say, oh yeah, I spend 5 hours a day with my kids. I can almost guarantee you half of that is like sitting down watching TV or like on a phone or watching something on an iPad or like playing a stupid game, right? That to me is that's like time wasted, right? You could have been using those 2.5 hours to work and then those other 2.5 hours to actually do something.
And interact.
And
engage,
and
right?
actually like talk or go to a baseball game or whatever, go to a museum or we do all that stuff. But you just have to block out the time. And you have to just say what's important to me. And, there were things that used to be important to me that I just can't fit anymore, right? Like I used to play softball 2-3 times a week, and that was at night. Now, that's not as important to me anymore, right? So now I'm going out to dinner instead of doing that, right? I could go out to dinner and play softball and go hang out with my friends, but then my kids get neglected, my wife gets neglected. Those things to me are higher on the totem pole than playing softball and hanging out with my friends 3 times a week. So just about balance. And I think also it's about finding time in your week that you may have been wasting or just not efficient, right? So, I was spending, say, 10 to 15 hours a week on my social media, just making sure that my posts are going up and I'm taking my pictures and I'm doing my videos and all that stuff, right? But that was 10 to 15 hours a week. I could have been doing other things, right? So again, goes back to investing in the business and investing to get you the things that you want. So for me, it was more worth it to hire someone to take over those 10 to 15 hours and pay them a certain amount of money, knowing that if I continue to do what I'm doing, that money is going to get made up for and paid for. So basically, if I just do things right, the money I'm technically spending, I look at it as investing. And if it's costing me, $15,000 a year, I could probably make $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 by having that person take it over, and I just gain 10 to 15 hours a week of my time back. And now I can section it off and do whatever I want with it.
Spoken like a true businessman.
And it's just,
yeah.
I never looked at things like that. I would look at, hiring someone like that as an expense, but once you start to realize that your time is the most valuable asset you have, once you get to the point where almost every hour of your day is booked, you have to find ways to maximize time for what you want to do. So little by little I'm learning, but I think I've gotten to the point where I've almost not perfected, but gotten very comfortable with, once something is eating up too much of my time, can I invest in something to kind of, alleviate that time for me to do other things? Can I pay someone to do it for me? It doesn't necessarily have to be, full time, right? I can maybe gain 5 hours a day or 5 hours a week back, right? By having, one of my coworkers kind of help me out, right? So it's just about figuring it out, but at some point you have to do it and you have to prioritize what means the most. I hang out with a lot of people that are a lot older than me and a lot more successful. And the one thing you hear, right, constantly over and over is this is the best time of your kid's life. You can't miss this stuff. I worked too hard. I missed a lot of stuff. And if you keep hearing that over and over from the same, types of person that you kind of want to aspire to be, successful, good family life, they make a lot of money, they have the things that you want to do in life. It's why am I not taking that knowledge and applying it now, right? I don't want to be 45 and 50 years old and saying that. I'd rather listen to the 45 and 50-year-olds say it, and at 35, 36, 37, implement it so that when I'm 45, I'm not looking back and saying, I should have listened to these people.
Smart play.
So,
you're utilizing the wisdom from other individuals who have been there, done that, and you kind of take that and use it. It sounds like just with your growth, it sounds like you've been doing this for 40 years, just from the growth and your systems and just continuing to evolve and learn, impressive stuff. So with the social media,
yes.
I think you and I share a similar philosophy in social media. That's why it's good to work with you. It's great to have you as a business partner. partner, and also even for us to like bounce off ideas when it comes to social media, because we know the value, we know the future,
Totally.
and we know where this platform is going to end up being. We don't know exactly, but we have an idea on what's just going to continue to happen, to where social media, just everything is evolving to social media, to where if you're not on social media within the next few years,
You're not relevant
you're just
anymore.
not going to be relevant, right? So then now when you are that trusted advisor and you get referred for the mortgage, the real estate transaction, even the real estate attorney at that point in time, if you're not relevant on social media, it could really second guess that individual from even using you. So now when we get to your social media, an interesting thing that I see with your particular page is you have one page to where you strictly use it for your business and your personal, where a lot of people completely separate it and they just have one strictly for business, one strictly for personal. So what made you go into just using one page, and do you think that's just a more effective way of growing your business?
So when I first started, I did separate it. I had business and I had personal, and I said, all right, it makes sense, right? Like, people want to see what you're about in business, they're going to follow this page, and if they want to see your family, they're going to look at this page. But I quickly kind of learned,
Because they could not give a shit about your family.
Yeah.
Calling a spade a spade. They could be like,
Yeah.
he's an excellent businessman, but
yeah, I think what I realized, and it came from the business side, right? So say I had 2,000 friends on Facebook, and I make a business page, and I invite all those people to now follow my business page. Maybe 200 of those 2,000 people are following my business page, and I'm saying to myself, all right, if I post business on my business page, only 200 people are going to see it. If I post business on my personal page, I already have all of these people that know Mike and follow Mike and, are interested in Mike, or otherwise they wouldn't follow what you do. Just like I follow you, I'm interested in Mike, right? And the things that you do. So I realized if I'm gonna combine both, I did a lot of research, and I try to follow like top people in the industry and what they're doing and how they're growing and how they're kind of managing.
now you are one of those top people.
I'm
so.
not the top yet, but hopefully one day. But you have to do that research because they're clearly at a level that you want to be at. They've clearly figured something out, right? That I don't know, otherwise you would be there. So I saw a lot of these top agents, and they were combining the business and the family, and then I just started reading about just social media and tactics and all that, and it made sense, right? If you're going to combine the business and the personal, you can't just post the same thing over and over. And it made sense. Like, I have people that they only post pictures of their kids constantly. And it's like, all right, I love your kid. He's very cute, but like,
Right.
I don't want to see him 900 times a day, right? Like, I don't want to see that. I want to see you with your friends. I want to see you at work, whatever. Like, I want to see what you do, right? Like, that's what social media is. It's how do you learn about somebody that you honestly may never have even met. And that, I think, is the best thing about social, is you can build the persona. Some people do it in a way that I don't like, right? Like, they make you think they're something that they're not, and a lot of people make a lot of money that way, and it's a business for them, and I don't go that direction, right?
Right.
Like, I want to use my social so that when people follow me, they know who I am, they know what I stand for, they know my values, they know what are important to me, so that if they value those same things, they're probably going to want to work with someone that's on the same page as them, right? Like, if there's someone who loves cats and I don't like animals, or I don't like cats because I have said that publicly, that person's not going to want to work with me. But vice versa, if I love dogs and I start talking about dogs all the time, and there's someone who loves animals and pets and dogs, they're going to probably be attracted to me. So I think it's a good filter sometimes too, because you don't want to work with everyone, because in the end of the day, if personalities don't match up, it's just not, it's like, the relationship between an agent and a buyer or seller, it's like a short-term marriage, right? And if you're not on the same page, it's just going to be a battle, and it's going to be headbutting the entire time, and it's just, you may do the deal, but it's just not going to end well. You're not going to get referrals from them. You're going to not love, transaction that you did, and it's going to suck the life out of you.
Right, just the stress and aggravation
It's going
alone,
to drain you. So if I have 10 other people I'm working with, and now I'm dealing with one person that I'm not getting along with very well, that's going to take all my time, all my energy. It's going to affect my mood. It's going to affect my personality. And now those other people who are on the same page, they don't benefit from that, right? Like they actually lose out on that, and it's not fair to them. So I think for me, I use social as a filter. This is who I am. I put everything out there. I was always a private guy, but I realized that, you know what? In order to be in this business and be successful, you have to put yourself out there, and you have to attract what you want to attract, like-minded people attract.
Right.
So if you put yourself out there, those people are going to come to you, and you're going to have a much more enjoyable experience. I really don't consider this a job because 95% of the people I work with, I truly enjoy working with them. You're going to end up with some people who it's just not the right fit. You got to deal with it, you move on, and you never really talk again, and that's okay. But for me, it's almost like a filter, whereas if someone sees me on there and they don't like me, they're not going to call me. And I'm okay with that. I've made peace with that at that point. They should really find someone who they're going to gel with, because this is not an easy process. It's lengthy, and there's a lot of stress, a lot of emotion. They should not be subjected to working with me if I'm not the right person for them, and vice versa. I shouldn't feel subjected to work with them if they're just not the right fit for me. So that's kind of how I've built my social, where I just put out there the truth and how I am, and if you like me, you like me. If you don't like me, you don't like me. I've come to peace with not everyone's going to like you, and that's, at this point in my life, I'm okay with that.
But at least they can appreciate that
I'm
you're
keeping it real.
authentic. You're
Yeah.
keeping it real. There's no sugarcoating. You are
I am
who you
who I
are.
am, man.
So I definitely admire and share the same view as you, to where I'm similar in that sense of I use the personal and the business. And something that I think is awesome as well is it's so great to see, because we are so involved in such an emotional process. Yeah,
Yep.
such a emotional process and transaction, to where I tell people all the time, especially in the beginning of the process, I'll get the phone call and be like, Mike, I'm looking to buy a house, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not supposed to.
Yep.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, you should be very excited, and you should be also scared shit at the same time.
Totally.
If you didn't have those normal human emotions, you wouldn't be human.
Yeah, you're
right.
a
So that's why I always like to start, especially with the first-time home buyers, is do a nice mortgage 101 and bring up just the sheer fact that in high school, there's no mortgage 101.
Yep.
The American dream is to buy a house, right? Then you go to college, and even at the collegiate level, there's no mortgage 101. If you want to get into finance, you'll see some
Little bit.
courses
Yep.
on accounting, but for the average individual, they just don't know where to start. So it's always great to have the guidance, and also the way that individuals can go on our social media platform and actually see, oh wow, here's 3 tips and 3 pointers. Oh, here's why I should talk to someone 6 to 12 months before I even think I'm ready. So it's great just to see the way you post in that fashion, because I admire it, and I do the same thing myself. One of the wonderful things too, and I'm sure you love it, is when you deal with your clients and then they end up following you on social media. Now, a lot of our clients, I know from working with you, directly, a lot of our clients turn into friends.
Yes.
So it's also great to see the client interaction, then they follow you on social media, and then they love everything you post. Me, I mean, I whip out the dancing moves, and from just having been blessed with that talent, and I get the feedback of, oh, Mike, keep dancing. Mike, do this. Mike, do that. So it's great to just kind of keep people engaged, and for them to also love to see that we're more than just a businessman. We're actually family people.
Yeah.
We're into sports. We're into golf. We have a set of hobbies. So what's also interesting too, when it was your son's birthday,
Yep.
right? Turned 5.
Yes.
The big 5. So what's interesting too is I remember I had a question for you, and then from just looking on social media, and then I noticed it was your son's birthday. So now it went, and the question actually popped into my brain again, and then that's when I was like, oh, you know what? Mike's busy with his son. I'll ask him tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that kind of really benefited me from being like, oh, wait, I had to talk to Mike. I had a question for him. Then at the same time being like, well, I'm not going to bother him now. He's spending time with his son on his birthday. So just so interesting how social media can just
well-rounded.
Yeah.
It just, I think if you use it the right way, I think it's a great thing. I think people that love you, they like to see your successes. They like to see your family. They like to see what you're doing with your life. It's a good way to stay in touch with people, right? I mean, if you had to make phone calls every single day to reach out to people, it's, again, hours and hours and hours. And I think, I don't know if every generation is like this, but I am in touch with so many people that I have not seen in forever. And literally every day we're sending videos back and forth on social media. And it's like you're interacting with these people on a daily basis without having to make that phone call. And once in a while, you're going to make the phone call and you're going to chat, right? Because you have to speak on the phone too. But it's just so fun to be able to be friendly with someone throughout. You might, message them 4, 5, 6 times a day. And then when you get in person with each other, you're laughing and you're like, oh, you sent me that video the other day. You had me crying on the floor. And it's just like a great way just to stay in touch with people who you just, sometimes you can't see. A lot of my friends from college, they live in Arizona. Now they live in Colorado. They're all over the country. And we interact, they're like totally different time zone, but we can interact through there, through social. And it's like without having to text each other, they may be at work. But like if I send them a video now and they get a couple of minutes, they watch it later on, they start laughing, and maybe they're having a bad day, and then all of a sudden they see this video, and now all of a sudden they just start laughing. It completely changes their mood. And then they call me later on, and it's like, I was having the worst day, you sent me that video, and it just completely changed my mood, right? And without that, you wouldn't be able to have those interactions. So
yeah, awesome.
It's
So
a cool thing.
We'll end on a real good note and try and make it a funny note too. So I've noticed on some of your social media posts, sometimes you'll talk about a wacky story. You'll even post something about what's going on, maybe inside a house that you're walking into with a buyer. So gotta of course put you on the spot. One good short story of maybe a interaction over the past year, maybe 2, but something that went on that wasn't a typical situation, that was odd, funny, or just quite frankly ridiculous.
Yeah, so this happens all the time, and we're actually starting to write all of these down because I feel like people love this business because it's like so up and down, and there's so many different things going on. So we actually have a list of these that we're going to start to put out. But one of my favorite stories is I had a house, I was a listing agent, and we had to do final walkthroughs. So whenever you buy a house, right before you close, you have to go back to the house. You got to check out all the systems in the house. You got to make sure that there's no leaks. You want to make sure the faucets work, the toilets flush, all that. So I had this guy. It was during probably 2020, 2021, and he had a ton of bids on his house, and he was a prick. He did not want to negotiate with anyone at all. And we had bids that the top bid was say $2 million, and the next bid was maybe 1.9. And the people at $2 million asked for a 50-cent change, and he wouldn't do it. They wanted to do something on the roof. It literally would have been $5, and he was just like, no, they don't want to buy my house. They can go see where they got to go. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I saw how this was going to go. So we get to the walkthrough, and the buyers are in the house, and he's like, oh, what's going on? And I'm like,
The walkthrough, so this is at the end.
At the end, we're about to close, and he's like, oh, I didn't realize they were going to re-inspect the house. Because they were walking around, they were flushing the toilets, they're doing all this stuff. I said, well, they're not re-inspecting the house. They had an inspection, but this is more so to just make sure that your air conditioning still works, the heating still works, and they'll just go around the house.
No damage.
Exactly. Right. You didn't punch holes in the wall, stuff like that. So they go downstairs, and I see his face, and I'm just like, what's wrong? And I'm like, he's like, well, what are they going to do down there? I was like, oh, well, there's not a lot. I said, it's a basement, right? So they want to make sure you didn't get water in the basement. That's one. That's a big thing. 2, I said, I probably want to check out the boiler room, see if the hot water heater's leaking, all that. And I said, and you have the bathroom downstairs. They'll probably turn on the shower, they'll flush the toilet, they'll do the sink. And he goes, well, that's going to be a problem. And I'm like, what do you mean it's going to be a problem? He goes, well, I hope they don't flush that toilet. And I'm like, well, what's the matter? I was like, these are the things you kind of have to tell me. If you would have told me, then we could have fixed this prior. And he goes, well, it's clogged, and they're going to learn the hard way. And like within 2 seconds, I heard like 4 women just screaming, and we go downstairs, and there's literally shit all over the place. Like, I don't know what happened with the toilet, but like it got clogged. It clearly wasn't working properly, and when they flushed it, he's got septic, and it backed up all over the place. And these poor people, like, I felt so bad, and they basically were like, you have to clean this up. And this guy was like, Mike, like, what do I got to do? I was like, you have to clean it up. Like, you can't like let them have this house with crap all over your basement floor. So whatever, he bit the bullet. He had to do what he had to do. But it's just like an example of, you get some sellers who they're just greedy, right? And they want to like slide by, and they want as much money as they can get. And that could have been very simple. All he had to say to me was, Mike, I checked the toilet the other day. It was clogged up. I don't think it's working. Like, what should I do? And I would just said, listen, they're buying your house for $2 million. Like, call plumber, snake it, and just make sure that it's working. Or tell me, I'll tell them that the toilet's clogged, and then maybe they say, listen, give us a credit for a couple $100. We'll have the plumber come.
Right, I'll deal with it.
And we'll deal with it, after the closing. Instead of going this route and like, I mean, they ended up buying the house, but in the end of the day, it's like, is that really the experience you want right before you're buying a house? So that was definitely the worst surprise I've gotten. I mean, there's many more.
I gotta ask you. So, did he personally clean it up, or did he like hire a cleaning crew, or have someone else come in and clean it?
He was cheap, so no, he did it.
So he personally, did he ask you for help?
I was not helping.
Okay.
I will do a lot, but like something like that, I am not doing. If I was there and like it was my fault, I flushed it, like I would have done it. Right.
But
like,
your house, your problem.
He was just being a prick, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? You clean it up. Like, this is not I did my job. I got these people here. I could have solved this problem, but you want to be the way you are.
Right. Or technically you could have solved it because
Correct.
they would have gotten the credit.
Yep.
But you also wouldn't have been able to witness the response from when you first flushed that toilet.
Listen,
you wouldn't be telling the story like that.
After the fact, I'm happy. I'm happy it happened, only because it ended up okay, and I get to tell the story.
Yeah.
And it is a good story.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
So,
sure. Okay, all right, good stuff. Well, Mike, great having you. Definitely appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Thank you.
Looking forward to having you in the future. Maybe what we'll do is, as the spring and summer actually rolls in,
we'll see how things are kind of going.
We'll have you back. We'll have you back, and then we'll see what our interest rates are at that point in time too. We'll see where the market is. We'll get you back, and you could tell us maybe another shit story.
Yeah, hopefully I have no more shit stories, but we'll have other stories to tell.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, buddy.